Honestly, I don't even know if I'm gonna be able to salvage these shots. This actually might ruin the whole nightscape session. Today we are off to a very small town located northeast of Sacramento, where I'm currently located. Now, it is hard to shoot the Milky Way and do astrophotography in Sacramento due to it being such a big city and surrounded by so much light pollution. So Foresthill is a good place to be able to shoot the stars. You can get away from the light pollution, and it's only about a 1-hour drive from Sacramento. All right, everyone, so we just arrived at the spot in Foresthill. As you guys can see, there is a lot of snow here. This is amazing. Good thing I did bring my boots, so I actually wasn't really prepared to bring my boots, but they were already in the car, so luckily I won't be having to deal with these running shoes, as they will probably get soaking wet in the snow. Oh, I was getting so nervous on the way up here, just because I haven't had clear skies like this in a while, and I haven't been to this spot in a couple years, so I was starting to get nervous. I did have a backup plan. My backup plan was just to go to Auburn and shoot there, but I've done that so many times. I really just wanted to come here and try something a bit different. All right, everyone. So the goal for tonight is to get the Winter Milky Way Arch over here, over all these trees. This is pretty much the same composition I got with the sunset time lapse I showed you guys earlier. So I'm planning on using the 20mm lens so I can do a wide angle lens. The reason why I'm doing 20mm is because I want to be able to capture as much of the sky and foreground as possible. I'm also going to be doing a panorama, so I want to be able to get as much sky and foreground as possible because I have a very short limited time to shoot tonight. I'm only going to have about 3 hours, and I want to do some tracked Milky Way skies, so it is going to take me a while to be able to get the whole sky photographed. It'll probably take me around 15 to 16 images, and if I do 2-minute exposures, that itself is already a 30-minute exposure just for the sky, and you have to count in all of the times I have to pan my camera and set up the camera to compose the shots. So I just checked photo pills, and the alignment of the Milky Way Arch is exactly what I was envisioning. So it starts over here in the south to the left-hand side, and it just arches perfectly over these trees here, goes all the way over the west to the north side over here. So it's going to be a really simple composition here. I'm planning on just getting the foreground, as you guys can see right here, just the trees against the sky with the snow on the foreground. So nothing special here, but it is a beautiful wide open area. So I'm just stoked to have an area that's not, you know, too populated with trees, because that is one thing that's really hard about doing astrophotography in California, is there's a lot of redwoods and big trees. Even though you can drive all the way to a nice non-light polluted area, a nice super dark area, you might not even be able to get a view of the sky because there's so many trees blocking the sky. So it took me a really long time to find this spot because Foresthill has so many trees. I just drove around until I found a nice area that has a nice clearance of these trees and it's less dense, so that I can get a nice open area of the sky so I can take pictures of the Milky Way and do a Milky Way Arch panorama. So that's the goal for tonight. I'll probably set up my star tracker to do some longer exposures, but in the meantime, I'm gonna set up my camera and take some test shots to try to get some good compositions. I may do some of the foregrounds right now because it is blue hour and I can get some nice detail out of the foreground. So I might start shooting the foreground now while I wait for it to get dark. Then from there, we can set up the star tracker and do those Milky Way sky images. Chucking on that 20mm f1.8 lens. Now in hindsight, I really should have bought some lens warmers. I did not even really think about that. And I had an issue with this a few weeks ago shooting in some cold weather. So, oh God, please don't fog up lens. Really hope my lens doesn't fog up. All right, let's get focused on a star. First thing you always do in nightscape photography. Man, I really wish the Nikon camera's monitor came out this way in portrait mode because it is so annoying having to go like this to frame your shot. All right, so I just finished taking the foreground exposures. It took me a lot longer than expected because I wanted to get over a 50% overlap. I did more of like a 75% overlap between each picture. So I don't even know how many pictures I took, probably like 15 pictures, and I did them all at 30 seconds at f2.8, ISO 1600. I went past blue hour and it's totally dark now. So the Milky Way is completely out. It's absolutely beautiful. So what I'm gonna go ahead and do now is set up my star tracker and take the sky shots. When you use a star tracker, you have to take the foreground and sky shots separately because the star tracker is following the rotation of the Earth. Your foreground is going to appear blurry when you take those pictures. So you have to basically take the sky photos separate from the foreground photos. So now that I have the foreground photos complete here, I'm going to go ahead and set up my star tracker and take some of the tracked sky shots of the Milky Way Arch over these trees here. All right, everyone, so unfortunately my lenses are fogging up like crazy right now, and I am so pissed at myself for not buying lens warmers before coming out here. I just forgot and I just didn't even think about it. Then the second I got out here to shoot, I realized that I had this issue a few weeks ago since it's been so cold outside, and I don't know if these shots are gonna be salvageable. I really hope so. So I'm really hoping that these shots turn out good. Like, they look okay within the camera as I'm wiping off all the fog, but I have a feeling that once I blow these shots up in the computer and start to try to edit them, the fog is going to be very apparent. So I'm a little bit scared to see these shots once I get home, but I'm doing my best to wipe down the lens between every single shot, and hopefully that's enough to let me finish taking this panorama. I'm only about a quarter of the way through. In hindsight, I should have taken that panorama first before the foreground, or try to do it a bit faster so that the lens didn't fog up as much. But I'm going to keep wiping down the lens. The camera is just fogging up so badly, and it's just ruining the freaking shots, man. I'm getting actually a lot of H alpha data, which is crazy. It just goes to show how dark it is here. There is a lot of pink coming out of this image. It's really cool. All right, time to do another wipe down session. All right guys, so unfortunately my lenses are fogging up like crazy right now. I'm towards the end of the panorama, and between every single shot I've been frantically just wiping down my lenses, trying to get all of the mist and fog off of it. But I honestly don't think this is going to be enough to salvage these shots. The shots themselves look amazing. The stars are tracked correctly. It's so dark here. They're so bright. You can fully see the Milky Way and the Milky Way Arch. But the fog just causes the stars to look bloated, and it just adds this like layer of, it almost looks like fog on the image. So it ruins the photos, and I'm trying my best to wipe it all off, but there's not really much you can do without a lens warmer. So this is just a huge lesson for me. Don't go to a spot without a lens warmer. And even with this camera I'm filming with, a lot of the footage is probably going to be quite shit, just because the lens is fogging up really bad as well. So that's why I haven't really gotten too much footage of the stars or anything, because both of my lenses are just fogging up like crazy. I'm currently on my last shot of the Milky Way panorama that I'm taking. So I'm just going to quickly wipe down the lens as I've been doing this whole time, and hope I can get this last shot here. Then I might mess around with a few other compositions before I leave. But yeah, definitely lesson for all you astrophotographers out there. Get some lens warmers, because the worst thing ever is being in a beautiful spot with the best conditions, not a single cloud in the sky, drove all the way here, and my lenses are just fogging up like crazy. So I really hope I can salvage these images. Bummer, but regardless, it's so nice just being out here under the stars. Just soaking up these last few views of these stars while I can. Just so amazing, so dark here. All right, so we're back home, and we're just looking at some of the shots in Lightroom here. And I wanted to just show you guys some of what the single images that I took before I stitched the panorama together. And these are just straight out of the camera. The only thing I've done to these images are apply some noise reduction to them, but no other edits were applied. So I just kind of wanted to show you guys what some of these images looked like straight out of the camera. And so this is the southern portion of the Milky Way here, and as we pan over to the right hand side, now I'm starting to get the Orion Nebula and the Orion's belt here to the right hand side. So as you can see, these are there's some pretty good detail coming out of these images, and these were shot at 60-second shutter speed, ISO 800 at f2.4 with a Nikon Z7 with a Nikon 20mm f1.8 lens. So as you guys can see, they do look pretty good just straight out of the camera. And as I pan to the right hand side, I'm going to show you what happened with some of the fogging. So earlier on, it wasn't too much of a problem. I don't really see too much of an issue with the fogging here. But as I start to get further into the image session, right here, we can start to see some of the effects of the fogging. So it's not too bad here, but it is making this hazy effect. That's the other thing when shooting long exposure skies. You always want to make sure that there's no planes in the shot, because this obviously looks super ugly and I don't want this to be in the final image. So I ended up just retaking the same shot here, and unfortunately the plane was still in it. But now we're starting to see the effects of the fog, right? So it starts to blur the stars a bit. When I zoom into that, you'll see how there's like that weird halo and like stretching of the light, and that's because there's the fog on the lens. And also some of the stars are starting to get drowned out by that fog as well. And it gets even worse here as we go to the next image. So look at that, guys. Like, you'll see the difference between the images. So it's like there's more stars. Then as the fog starts to go onto the lens, it starts to drown out those stars. And so look at that. That just looks absolutely horrible. Like, there's this weird halo and it's like starting to drown out the stars. And so this is when I was starting to freak out, because I felt like these images were all just going to look like this, and this is just unusable. And you can see it's starting to affect this foreground as well. So I ended up just wiping down the lens and retaking the same image, and I was pretty happy with how this one came out. But once again, there's another star or another plane in this image here. So I had to retake this image a few different times to get it right. As you guys can see, the fog is still affecting it, but I was able to bring out more of those stars by just wiping down the lens. And I'll show you guys what the rest of the photos look like here. So once again, you'll see how that fog is affecting the planet Jupiter here. So I'm just happy that I was able to wipe down most of it, and they're still affecting the images, like you can see here with these stars. It's just causing some weird halo effects around the stars, but I'm just glad I was able to get the detail out of the Milky Way here. So I ended up using these images to stitch them together into the panorama. Honestly, I'm just glad I was even able to get anything out of this panorama. I'm pretty happy with how this turned out, considering how fogged up the lenses actually were. I'm pretty surprised I was even able to get so much detail out of these stars here. Because I'm tracking the stars, the foreground is going to appear blurry. So as we can see here with these trees, they're not sharp, and there's movement in the trees due to the camera moving. It's not too bad when you zoom out, you can't really tell too much, but when you start to zoom into the photo, you'll see these the blur in the foreground. So this is why we have to take the foreground separately from the sky. So that's why what you're seeing here is just the sky image. Then I did a separate panorama for the foreground. So as you guys can see, this is much sharper. There's no longer any movement in those trees. They're nice and still, because this is before I took those track shots. And so I was able to pull out a lot more detail of the foreground here. This is what happens when you don't track the sky, is you get these streaks of stars. And so that's the whole point of using a star tracker, is so you can get those nice sharp stars and you don't get these weird looking streaks in the sky. But one thing I actually do like about this panorama is you can see Andromeda Galaxy here. So Andromeda Galaxy was showing earlier in the night, but as the night progressed, it's set beyond the horizon here. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to get that in my sky images. But what I'm going to go ahead and do now is blend this foreground image with my sky image to get the ultimate final image. So I'm going to go ahead and show you guys what that final image looks like once I blend this foreground with my sky. All right, what's up everyone? So I actually ended up coming back to the same spot. It is currently Saturday, so it's about 3 days later, and I bought some lens warmers, so this time I should not have the same issue as a few days ago, but I just could not resist coming back as it was forecasted clear skies tonight, and we got exactly what we were looking for. As you guys can see, there is so many stars in the sky. It is so beautiful to be back here. I'm just so happy that I got some lens warmers, and I'm actually hoping to retake the same photograph with some longer exposures. So I'm gonna go ahead and set up the star tracker here, and I already got my lens warmers on this video camera, so it should be good in terms of that. My plan for tonight is to get some more tracked shots of the Milky Way using the 20mm lens, and I'm hoping to basically get the same composition of these sky shots, just redo those sky shots. I already have a nice foreground, so pretty much all I have to do tonight is just do those sky images, and really hope that these lenses don't fog up now that I have the lens warmers. And it's actually gonna be a lot easier now that I've already been to this spot. I know exactly where to set up, where to shoot, so it should be a breeze tonight. I'm really looking forward to this image session, so I'm hoping to kind of get some more shots that I can put in this video. I'll probably be setting up this camera here that I'm filming with for a time lapse of the Milky Way in this direction. If I start it now, I'll probably be able to get portions of Andromeda Galaxy in the time lapse since it is earlier on, but Andromeda is going to be setting behind these trees here later in the night, so I should get that started now while I can. But in the meantime, while that time lapse is going, like I said, I'm gonna get those track shots of the sky so I can get a nice Milky Way Arch panorama, and hopefully this time I won't have as many issues as a few nights ago. All right, wish me luck. All right, so my lenses are still fogging, yay! No, for real though, I literally bought 2 lens warmers. They don't work very well. I have it on the highest setting, and it's not even hot. Like, I'm touching with my hands, it's like slightly warm, but it's definitely not warm enough to defog the lens. So I'm probably gonna end up returning these and see if I can get a better one that gets hotter. But in the meantime, I got some hand warmers and some toe warmers. Thank God these were in my car, because what I'm gonna go ahead and do is strap these to the lens, and hopefully that will be enough to defog the lens. I already have my star tracker set up for these sky track shots, so I'm gonna try and stick these on there and hope that fixes the fogging on the lens. Wish me luck. Thank you guys so much again for watching. I just finished taking all of my pictures for tonight, and I'm so glad that I came back here with the lens warmers. Even though they weren't performing too greatly, they did make a huge difference on the images tonight. So I think you guys are gonna see what the difference between having a lens warmer and not having a lens warmer does to a photograph at night when when it's cold outside. The star images looked absolutely incredible. I ended up going with a 2-minute exposure this time instead of 1-minute exposure, and dropped on the ISO. So just straight out of the camera, they look like they're going to be super detailed, as I did get a really long exposure for those panorama shots. One issue that I did notice though is I forgot to level out my camera each time before taking the shot. When you're using a star tracker, since the camera's moving, you have to make sure you're re-leveling the camera every few minutes, just to ensure that when you pan the camera, it's on a level surface. However, I didn't realize that I wasn't doing that until about halfway through, so I just decided to just send it with the rest of it without leveling it out. And so I don't know if it's going to stitch very well, and also I didn't get to shooting these images until later in the night this night, which meant that the Milky Way was lower on the horizon. So that's definitely going to affect the way that the final composition looks, because I won't be able to have that distance between the Milky Way Arch and the trees. It's going to be a lot closer to that horizon, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's going to make it harder to edit, and it's also just going to look different in the final photograph. So you guys will definitely see that in the final photographs there. But I think lesson learned, lens warmers definitely are needed out here when it's this cold. And I had such a great time coming back here. It's just so beautiful. Even coming back here again, it just made me realize like how beautiful this spot really is. And I'm just so glad that I got clear skies 2 nights in 1 week. That's very, very unheard of with my luck. So thanks again everyone for watching. I hope you get clear skies soon, and I will be shooting more astro videos very soon here, so stay tuned. All right, peace out everyone.